All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Nithin Ramachandra from the NR Hour Sports Show. This is episode 805. I'm joined by a special guest. His name is Colin Cosell. He's a PA announcer for the New York Mets. Obviously, he's the grandson of Howard Cosell. He's another great announcer too. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for joining the show. It's truly an honor. And how are you and your family doing during this situation?
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. My family's been very lucky. We're all vaccinated now, and everyone has made it through the worst of the pandemic. So I appreciate your asking, and the
Yeah,
same to you and your family as well.
yeah, thank you. And hopefully there's a light underneath the tunnel. Everything is opening up back up, and seeing fans back in the sporting events is nice to see. So hopefully we're back to normal soon. But I want to ask you though, obviously throughout your childhood growing up, when did you start realizing that you wanted to be in sports and cover sports? And did you obviously you're the you're the grandson of Howard Cosell. Would you say that he's one of your role models growing up in the sports industry?
100%. I fell in love with a microphone at age 5. Watching my grandfather do his radio show from his house. He was able to do it remotely, his summer home on Long Island in West Hampton Beach. And I always saw the microphone there and saw the headphones, but didn't really know what it was all about. And so one morning I asked my grandmother to wake me up so I could come watch Papa do his thing. And so I sat on his lap, put on his headphones, did my first ever air check with his producer, Eddie. And from that day on, I was hooked. I just knew I wanted to talk into microphones for the rest of my life. And the sports aspect just kind of that kind of organically, became part of the equation, given my grandfather's background and given him my love of sports as well.
Oh, wow. So age of 5, that's amazing. That's interesting. So, obviously, did you get obviously when you were growing up, did you play any sports or be involved in sports like in the athlete aspect?
Sure, I was a hockey player and a soccer player. I dabbled in basketball, wasn't particularly good. Had a good perimeter game, but that was not going to get me any scholarships or anything. Not that I was going to get them for soccer or hockey either, but hockey's my number one sport. But I've always been a huge fan of football and baseball. I enjoy basketball as well, and myriad other sports that are out there. But the ones that I played the most were soccer, but mostly hockey.
Hmm. So when you were age of 5, when you picked up the microphone, and then seeing your growth now from then, what did you start doing at 5, and what did you start covering at 5? And obviously back in the day when you're growing up, you had to use different things. What else did you use other than a microphone while growing up?
My grandfather actually gave me one of his little mini tape recorders that he used as a reporter. One of the ones that had the little mini cassette tapes. And I would just constantly record, re-record commercials, my own little radio shows, whatever it was, whatever I felt like doing, game shows, just play-by-play of me roaming around the house. I mean, it didn't matter. I just loved talking into it, manipulating my voice, trying different styles, and then playing it back and seeing what I liked, seeing what made me laugh, because I also have I lean towards the comedic side of life. I did stand-up comedy for 17 years. So that's always been in me, to make people laugh. And so I try to make myself laugh. But I would just talk into this thing for hours. And that would go for any sort of tape recording device, even if it was a little Fisher Price tape recorder that had a record setting on it. Whatever it was that I could talk into, I would. And that even went on to like handheld cameras, our little, home camera, which had a VHS tape in it. And I would, record all sorts of stuff. We'd make up commercials, little short movies, play-by-play of things like with wrestling action figures and stuff like that. So whatever I could get my hands on and whatever medium I could use, because there really is not much of an outlet for a young broadcaster at age 5. They don't really offer any time in the booth or opportunities to cover anything when you're just a small child. And that really carried through to high school as well. I went to a very small private high school, and we didn't have the luxury of a studio of any sort. So it was all whatever I could get my hands on at home.
Wow, that's amazing. But starting at age 5 as a announcer is amazing. And and seeing, obviously you're one of the best out there in my opinion when it comes to PA announcing. And but
Thank you.
I want to ask you though, take me back to your comedian experience. What was that like? You said 17 years, and what was that like performing in gigs and in front of people, uh, and you performed all over the place, I'm sure. But what was that like experience?
Stand-up comedy is the hardest thing in all of entertainment,
Yeah.
hands down, because it's you and a microphone and a spotlight and your own script, your own words, your own jokes, your own lines, and it's you against a crowd that came to laugh. And you have one job up there. And if you're not doing it well, if you don't read the crowd well, or if they're just not feeling it, or whatever the case may be, it's tough. You know, you have to have a really, really thick skin. You have to be tenacious. It's a very cutthroat industry, and I would bounce around the city. My mainstay was stand-up New York, but I bounced around the city for years, and I realized it was exhausting and not as fulfilling as I'd hoped it would be, because I wanted it just to be fun. I just wanted to go up there and make people laugh and go about my business. So I took a little bit of time off from it, and then I just started producing shows and putting together shows with the comedians I had met over those several years. And if a friend of mine had a bar and they wanted a comedy night, or I had a friend who wanted a comedy night for a corporate gig, or whatever the case may be, I would produce those, and then I would MC them. I would be the host. And there was kind of a cop out, because I wouldn't have to write my own jokes anymore. I just did a lot of crowd work, you know, just getting the crowd warmed up and talking to them and bouncing off of whatever they would say to me. And so I ended up doing that for a good 10 years. And then, you know, my professional career just kind of blossomed, and I didn't really have time for that anymore. But there's nothing in the world like stand-up comedy. I love it. I miss it. And I still try to make people laugh as much as humanly possible every chance I get, really.
Wow, yeah. So this is a two-part question. So how hard is it sometimes for comedians to come up with content and sometimes their own jokes, and some of them like to come up with their own jokes. But for you, how hard did you work throughout the day, just come up with some really good jokes and the content for the fans? And the next part to this, would you say that being a comedian helped you along the way to be where you're at right now as an announcer with the Mets?
Well, you know, when it comes to coming up with your own jokes, I started in January of 2001. And at that point, the world was a very, very different place. And so it was kind of no holds barred. So you could make jokes at pretty much any expense, and you wouldn't get canceled or called out or called, you know, insensitive or what have you. And then 8 months later, 9/11 happened and everything changed. And that also went for stand-up comics, you know, trying to figure out how to navigate your way through, you know, the greatest disaster on this soil since, you know, since the Civil War. Like that's pretty it's pretty tough to get through, and try to find a way to find the laughter again and make people laugh in this new world of terrorism and what have you. So we all had to pivot collectively as comedians, and you know, that was stressful. It was tough to do. But the other thing is, you know, whenever you're writing a joke, you have to assume there's someone out there who's coming up with a similar joke, you know, and you want to make sure you've got your own voice to it. You know, as the saying goes, the death of all great jokes is parallel thought. And you don't want to go up there and tell the joke, and it turns out Jim Gaffigan was just telling the same joke the night before in Los Angeles, and people are like, oh, you're biting his material. You know, it becomes a very slippery slope. So it's tough. You know, it's very tough to write. I'm actually helping a friend of mine right now who's just getting into stand-up comedy. I've been helping him put together his set. And that has actually been the most fulfilling thing for me, because I'm able to take my years of experience and give it to someone who's young and hungry, and kind of guide him into finding his voice as a comedian. With regards to how it has influenced my career or affected my career, you know, it gives me confidence. I know that when I'm behind a mic in front of 15 people in a comedy club, you know, on a Thursday night, that's a lot harder for me than being behind the mic at Citi Field with a packed house of 45,000 fans.
Right.
You know, because with that, it's a script. I know I just have to get that right. I have to pronounce all the players' names right. And then my job is done, and is done to the best of my ability. That being said, when I am doing the PA for the New York Riptide in the National Lacrosse League, that is a no holds barred job. Like I am constantly talking throughout the entire game. They want me to antagonize the opposition so I can crack jokes. I make fun of the other team. I do a little bit of play-by-play and color commentary. I'll do some interviews. I'll do some crowd work. And all the while, I'm also doing public address, goal scored by so-and-so, or here's the penalty, or what have you. So it definitely has come in handy when I do my job with the Riptide.
So I want to ask you, though, when you were in high school and college, did you get to announce games when you were in high school and college, or did you start announcing when you got to the Mets and then obviously the lacrosse?
Let's see here, I guess it was 98 or 99 when I was in college, and I came back for homecoming, and the athletic director asked me, it was 99, I think, or maybe even 2000. I don't know. Time means nothing anymore. I'm 41. I've lost track. But they asked me if I would do the PA for the homecoming football game. And I'm like, of course I will. And so that was my first real foray. I cut my teeth as a PA announcer, so to speak, at my high school alma mater for homecoming. Now, I would do that off and on for years, but really didn't think much would come of it. And then I used to run a trivia night at a bar I used to manage in the East Village called Percy's. And there was a company that would give us the questions. They ran this trivia league, and I would host it. And each night before we would begin, I would do a Chicago Bulls style introduction of all the people that were working that night. Everyone, all the waitresses, the bartenders, bus boys, whoever was going to be out on the floor that night. And I would do it in the fashion of the Chicago Bulls entrance, that iconic where they play Sirius by Alan Parsons Project, and make it really dramatic. One of the owners of the trivia league was there one night when I was doing this and loved it. And he was like, would you be the PA announcer for a team I'm a partial owner for called the New York Empire? And they are an ultimate Frisbee team in the AUDL, the American Ultimate Disc League. And so that was my first real professional gig. That's the first time I got paid to be a PA announcer. And the rest just kind of, it became a matter of luck. I met the right people, was in the right place at the right time to find out about the Mets job, submitted my demo, and the rest is history. Thank God.
So I want to ask you, how grateful are you that the Mets gave you the opportunity to become their PA announcer? And take me back to the first time they called you and they gave you the opportunity. Where were you at with your family, and what was the reaction?
I was managing a restaurant in Queens at that time, and one of our beloved patrons had unexpectedly passed away.
Oh, wow.
And so that day they had narrowed it down to 7 people after hundreds and hundreds of applicants. And we're having the 7 of us come into Citi Field, and it was empty. The Mets were out of town, and would have us do a read into the PA and had see how it sounds throughout the stadium. And there were people from higher ups on the Mets scattered throughout the ballpark where I could not see them. So I just saw an empty ballpark. So last year with the pandemic was not the first time I ever announced with an empty ballpark. It was literally my final audition. And as I went there, I read, I got through it. I didn't stumble. I was more nervous leaving the ballpark than I was going there because I knew that was it and it's out of my hands now. And so I went home. I got changed to go to the wake for our patron. And then I was going to go straight to work after that. And as I was parking, I was parallel parking to go to this wake. I got a phone call saying, we've narrowed it down to 2 people. And I was like, okay, what's the next step? And they said, that's it. We're going to go with 2 PA announcers. It's you and Maricel Castro. Congratulations. You got the job. At which point I burst into tears. Now, I did not call anyone right after this because I wanted to go into this wake with a somber, kind of feel to me because I was there to pay my respects to someone who just passed away. But because I was crying, it looked like I was really, really visibly shaken and very upset about the passing of our friend Joe. So people were, consoling me, and I'm like, yeah. And then I left. I got in the car. I called my wife. I called my mom and told them, I got the job, and went to work and said, I will be staying with you guys until you get a proper, replacement. But I got the job with the Mets, and I'm going to leave the service industry once and for all. And a few weeks later, I did.
Hmm. So obviously, you guys, you've been through the ups and downs with the Mets over the years, and what do you like about obviously seeing the growth of them and being able to see the young players come up and the players they acquire in trades or whatever free agency, and what's it like seeing the growth now, and they're competing now in the NL East, but from the past, how hard was it from the past when they were struggling and now seeing the growth?
Well, when I joined in 2018, that was the season that started 11-1, and the hopes for the team were through the roof. And fans were feeling amazing about the team. And then there was a massive tailspin. And my first game was actually 3 years ago today. It was on June 2nd, Saturday, June 2nd, 2018. We were playing against the Chicago Cubs. So Joe Madden was the manager for Chicago, and he's very big on micromanaging. So I know it's going to have my hands full. And, it was the game went 13 innings, and it was brutal. The Mets lost. It was baptism by fire for me. And, it was tumultuous, to say the least. And so the rest of that season was, pretty lackluster. 2019 had glimmers of hope. But watching, the Pete Alonsos come up, the Jeff McNeils come up, seeing the change in ownership and the deals that Steve Cohen and Omar Minaya and everyone have made have been, phenomenal. They bought into depth, and that depth has kept this team afloat. There's the bench mob. And so it's really exciting to see a team go from the rock bottom of 2018 to being on top of the AL East without, a lot of their team even playing for the past month because everyone's been injured. So it's a really exciting time. I'm thrilled. I am dying to announce during a playoff game with a full ballpark, and hopefully we will be at that point because I'm all but certain that this team will be making the playoffs. And it's truly a thrill. It's, obviously the end game is to win a championship, but I'll take a step into the playoffs first. And I think this team is built to do that.
Yeah, I think you said AL East by accident, but NL East.
I might have. I don't know. It has been a long week. I'm having surgery on my knee tomorrow. I'm exhausted. So I'm at, so it's been, so if I said AL East, I'm sure I meant NL East, but whatever. Maybe it just sounded like, I don't know. I speak a lot better when there's a crowd in front of me. I apologize.
That's all right. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say my prayers are with you guys, wishing you speedy recovery for tomorrow. So
thank you. It's apparently I'll be limping in. It's my left meniscus. I tore it. It's an old hockey injury that had been fixed 15 years ago, and apparently I'll be limping in and walking out. So wow. I'm probably the only person who's ever been excited for surgery. I can't wait to get this fixed. So thank you.
Yeah. So I want to ask you though. So take me back to when obviously they made that ownership change with Steve Cohen, and I'm a Yankee fan, and now they're going to compete with us when it comes to free agents. But for you guys, when you heard the news that the Steve Cohen was coming in, and when he made the trade for Lindor, Carlos Carrasco, what was that? What was that like as a PA announcer, seeing that and being able to see stars coming in Citi Field now, and for the fans to rejoice?
Well, first of all, it's bittersweet for me because the Wilpon family gave me my start. They were my first bosses with the New York Mets, and I'm forever grateful for them. And to watch ownership change hands for a major market team is it's pretty crazy to watch. It's obviously exciting. Steve Cohen is a huge Mets fan, and he is hell-bent on bringing us a championship, and I believe him. So, that first move with Lindor and Carrasco, bringing in James McCann, signing Stroh, and just building this team, Taiwan Walker. It's been really, really exciting to see, the direction it's going in. But that being said, I'm also just happy that Steve Cohen enjoys the job I do. When there's a change of ownership, there's always the fear, like, what if he wants to bring in his own PA guy? Because he's the owner, he can do that. But luckily, he liked me enough to have me here for this season and hopefully years and years to come. But it's bittersweet but exciting.
Did you reach out to the Wilpons when they decided to move on, and also the next part was when you met with Steve Cohen, What was it like talking to him?
It's funny. I actually have not met Steve face to face yet,
Okay.
because the protocols around the ballpark have been so strict. So I think everyone's been kind of staying in their own bubble. But as they loosen up, I have no doubt that that'll be joining. And his son, Josh, actually works with us in production, and he's a great kid. He's a lot of fun, very funny. I did not get a chance to bid farewell to the Wilpons. But I've made it known that I am forever grateful for the opportunity they gave me, and yeah, that's I wish them nothing but the best.
Hmm. So, what have you guys learned as announcers? Obviously, like last year, you guys were able to call games in the stadium still, but without fans. And how hard was it not seeing fans there during a 60-game sprint for these teams? And what have you guys learned from last year till now, and now seeing fans officially back into the stadium?
Well, I learned that my job, 90% of my job is the excitement of announcing players to a live crowd. When I announce Jacob DeGrom's name, I know the crowd is going to go nuts. When I announce Pete Alonso to bat, I know the crowd's going to go nuts, and I feed off of that. That is when I announce the starting lineups, like that is my favorite part of the game, other than when we win or we have a big play, because that is the moment where there's no score, everyone's excited and hopeful, and the players that I'm announcing are the players that the fans love, and they react accordingly, and I feed off of it. So without having them there, that was brutal. It was tough. That being said, my production crew, and they're the best in the biz as far as as I'm concerned, and of course I'm biased, but they did the piped in crowd noise and reactions and stuff like that, and if you closed your eyes, it sounded authentic. It was when you looked out there and saw cardboard cutouts that you knew it wasn't. So you learn to just keep up the job you do, treat it like the fans are there, no matter what is happening and no matter what the circumstances are. And so this year, when they started allowing fans back, it made such a difference. It's baseball is such a sensory game when you're there.
Mm-hmm.
There are the sights, there are the sounds, there are the smells, the tastes and the touches, and it's all there. It's all sensory. And to actually have that sound and to have the smell of the vendors open again, it was, I nearly got choked up. When I announced at the very end of the game, I say, thanks for coming to today or tonight's game. Hyundai reminds you to please arrive home safely. Mm-hmm. And then I let go of the button on my microphone, and then I clicked it again, and I said, and by the way, fans, welcome back. And that was heartfelt. That because that truly, and I had a lump in my throat as I was saying that, because it really is such a huge component of what I do.
Yeah, so that's amazing. And obviously now a big topic is women in sports. I'm a big advocate in women in sports, and a couple of my friends that work with me with this show, I have like 3 females that work with me with the show. And so what's it like working with Mary Sol Castro? She's amazing, and she's the first female PA announcer too. I heard. And what's it like working with her and seeing women in sports grow and seeing her growth too?
It's phenomenal. During my formative years, I grew up in a household with my mom and my sister. And so they had a very strong influence on me. I suppose my feminine side, so to speak, and my appreciation for women. And I've always felt that the inequality in pay and treatment of women is unacceptable in a country that's supposed to be the number one country in the world. We take such great pride in being Americans. Well, we need to take pride in every single American for who they are, be it by gender, race, or preference, and so on. When it comes to Marisol is she and I hit it off instantly from day one. And she is like a sister to me. We've always had each other's backs. She is a mega talent, and it is just an honor to be able to share that booth with her. I was there the first night that she was in the booth. I took a recording with my phone of her very first announcement, because there it was right before my very eyes, history being made. And I'm in the room where it happened, so to quote Hamilton. And it was just such, I was beaming with pride and joy for her, for women in sports. And, with that, it's another reason why I don't take this job for granted, because they could have very, very easily gone with one PA announcer and had it be Marisol, and she would be phenomenal. So I'm honored. I'm blessed. I'm very, very fortunate to be able to share that booth with her, to share the title with her, and to have built such a strong friendship with her. She's just truly, truly unbelievable.
Hmm. So, what advice would you give to young kids and young broadcasters that are trying to come up and come to try to reach their goals as a broadcaster or announcer?
The number one thing I always preach is be a good person. Don't take yourself too seriously. Take the job seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. The people that I always loved working with when I was doing play-by-play, I always loved, my color commentator or my lead play-by-play guy, whoever, whatever the situation was. But people I always fraternized with the most were the cameramen, the crew, the people in the truck, because they're the ones that also, I mean, they're a lot of fun. They're always funny. They're always quirky, but they're the ones that make you look and sound good. And you want to be on their good side.
Right.
But, so being a good person also, because if they get a job, they move up in the world, and one of their bosses says, hey, we need an announcer. We need a play-by-play guy. We need a PA guy. Do you know someone? They're going to remember you, and they're going to recommend you, and that lends itself to another bit of advice, which is networking. If you want to become a PA announcer, reach out to the local PA announcer, be it minor league baseball or a major team or, a major sport. Reach out to them, shadow them, develop a relationship with them, because who knows? They might groom you, they might mentor you. And in the process, if there's a night where they can't make it, say they come down ill and they can't make it for a series, they might turn to you and say, listen, or turn to their boss and say, listen, I know this young man who is really good. I've been teaching him, and I think he'd be a good person to fill in for me. And then boom, you're in it, you're in there. That's on your resume, and then you start shopping that around. So be a good person, network, and also be good at many skills. Like be great at a couple of things, but be really good at a few others, because versatility goes a long way.
So I don't know. I don't know if you're willing to talk about this, but this is a sensitive topic that needs to be changed. And obviously, this happened obviously this player's in the NL East. Also, Marcell Ozuna, he got arrested for domestic violence. And what needs to change for baseball and other sports even that happen? What do you think they need to do in all leagues to change all this and making sure this thing stops from these players?
I mean, the number one thing is accountability, and there needs to be transparency for the fans, for what exactly happened, what facts we know. This is a democracy where you are innocent until proven guilty. But if there's something that stands out, if there's videotape or something like that, there needs to be accountability, because first of all, the fans are the ones that drive these teams. They're not multi-billion-dollar teams unless the fans are buying their products, be it tickets, shirts, jerseys, food, whatever the case may be. So there needs to be that accountability, that transparency, and it needs to be consistent. You can't ban one guy 30 games and then another guy for life or what have you, and it's the same crime, because they might be more valuable to your league. But I think that's it. I think there also needs to be kind of a background check. There needs to be vetting on every single player, because they are going to be held to a very high mark, a very high bar. They're role models, for kids. And they're setting, whether or not they like it or not, that's part of the the responsibility of being a professional athlete. You're gonna have that weight on your back, heavy as the head that wears the crown, and you've got to act accordingly. So background checks, I think, would help as well, so what you're getting into with this player. If they have something in their past and it's been corrected, they've gone to therapy or whatever, you can take it easy with that person. But if not, you got to keep an eye on them, or just not draft them or have them in your league, because they might be toxic to the team and to the league at large.
Right. Yeah. So now we do this fun little segment on the show. It's called the rapid fire segment. You ready for this?
Let's go.
All right. So some breaking news just popped up on my phone, and I'm sure you know Coach K just retired from Duke. And what are your thoughts on Coach K?
I mean, one of the all-time greats. I think it's gotten to the point now where he's got to be exhausted.
Yeah.
He just started. He was putting the program together for over 35 years now, and turned it into one of the most storied. I can't call it a franchise, but schools in NCAA basketball history. So I wish him well. I hope he relaxes a bit, and if not, I hope he finds a career choice moving forward that best fits him. But if not, if he just retires and calls it quits, good for him. He's earned the rest.
Yeah. So outside of Marisol's first game that she called, what would you say you guys' most memorable game that you called so far in your career with both when you guys worked together?
Well, I mean, we the only day we work together, we do opening day together at Citi Field. So she'll do the pregame and then I'll do the in game. And whenever we do get to work together, it's always a blast. I mean, the two of us, we turn into like middle schoolers with our senses of humor. It's ridiculous. There have been a couple of times where I've been her spotter. So I've been in the booth when our regular guy, Nick, can't make it. I'll step in and do it. And so that means I'll have the binoculars and like keep an eye on player changes or anything. Cause if she's reading copy, her eyes can't be everywhere. And so if it's just her and I in the booth, it's ridiculous. Like it's just a big old joke fest. We're laughing. And we have a blast doing it. I can't speak for her per se. I would imagine that Pete Alonso's 53rd home run that night must have been a lot of fun for her. I was definitely jealous that she was in the booth that night and I was sitting on the couch right over here watching from home. But the first big thrill for me was announcing David Wright's final at bat. Okay. That was a playoff kind of energy. The place was packed. The energy was electric. And to be, the final one to call David Wright up to bat was just a huge thrill. And there have been many honors since and many that stand out to me, many great nights, walk-offs, wild games, winning, double headers and sweeps and stuff and other ceremonies and what have you. But that one will always stand out. David Wright's final at bat.
How about your most memorable home run call?
Oh man. Well, my boss would allow me. We used to do a thing. We don't do it anymore, called the Nike Clutch Play of the Game, and that would be the more than likely the game-winning hit or home run or what have you. And because Todd Frazier has the last name Frazier, and my grandfather, one of his most famous quotes was from Ollie Frazier getting knocked down, and my grandfather yelling, "Down goes Frazier!" And so anytime I announced Todd Frazier's name, I always put kind of a Howard Cosell spin on it. Mm-hmm. So I'd be like, the third baseman, Todd Frazier. But when he hit a game-winning home run, they allowed me to say, out goes Frazier. Todd Frazier's game-winning, walk-off home run in the bottom of the ninth is your Nike Clutch Play of the Game, whatever. That was fun for me. I wish I got to announce more during the home runs. Instead, I get to announce that a lucky fan gets an autographed baseball after one of our players hits a home run. But I'm not afforded that luxury. I just bring the players in and do defensive changes and some commercial reads during the game.
So speaking of your grandfather, what's it like seeing him being a legend, play-by-play caller and broadcaster, announcer, and he's a legend out there, and being able to do the same thing like he did? What's it like? What's that like?
It's funny because our careers are they've never really paralleled at all. He was a lawyer until he was 38 years old and left the legal profession to follow his dream of being a sports broadcaster. My background was in theater and stand-up comedy before I made it into the world of broadcasting. So when I was doing play-by-play and color commentary, I had a very different style. I mean, it was brutally honest like my grandfather, but I also added a lot of levity to it. And that was the comedic background in me. Just like to get a rise and make things a little bit looser and a little bit more fun, because at the end of the day, sports is escapism. And I take my team seriously. Don't get me wrong, but you got to have some fun with it. But we did not parallel until I got the job with the Mets. because my grandfather got his first big break as a reporter, as a beat reporter covering the New York Mets in their inaugural season in 1962. So that was his big break. And my big break as an announcer came 36 years later as a public address announcer for the New York Mets. So for me, it's really cool. And as a public address announcer, I get to say that I did something in the sports industry that my grandfather did not do. That still involves talking to a microphone. So, it's cool to have the legacy going, but it's also cool to be carving out my own.
So I want to ask you though. So how pumped are you when Jason DeGrom takes him out every fifth day, and when you're sitting in the booth? And how pumped are you? I say I'm ready to go. Is that how you feel when DeGrom goes out there?
Absolutely, and it's Jacob DeGrom. You called him Jason, so
sorry.
that's your AL East moment for the interview. I know that when I've got a DeGrom day and I'm going to be in the booth, like I'm amped because I know he's going to be batting ninth, and I know when I'm doing the starting lineups, I milk it. Like I go to town. I go 110% when I announce his name because I know the crowd is going to react accordingly. And then I get to sit there and get paid to watch the best pitcher on the planet do his thing. And not to mention the fact that he's doing it behind the plate as well. Like when he's at bat, like he may very well get a hit. The dude's hitting just under 500 and we're 2 months into the season. It's unbelievable to be alive at this time to watch a pitcher in his prime doing his thing. But when that pitcher is on your team and you're the announcer for it, it's magic. It's mind blowing. Same sort of not the same, but like when Edwin Diaz comes into a game now, his song has become a huge hit with the fans, and he's been having an unbelievable season thus far. So when I announce him, I know the crowd's going to go nuts and they're all dancing along with the song. So it's that same sort of electricity, but with Jake, it's just like, oh, this is awesome. Because I know the crowd's going to be amped and we're going to have as many people there as possible to see history in motion.
I mean, it would be nice if you could get more runs for him and wins, because this guy, he deserves a lot. If he was on the Yankees, you would have had half the wins that he has right now in the Mets.
I mean, that may be true. Maybe not this season so much. The Yankees have been kind of struggling at the plate, but listen, he got the run support needed the other day.
Yeah.
And I think this is a team that's going to be able to shake that. I think he'll finally get the wins he deserves. But his breadth of work, no matter what is in the wins or loss column, his ERA and his strikeouts and his overall statistics are more than enough to carry him into Cooperstown. So, whatever happens. But I think he is a part of a team that will win him a championship, and all will be forgotten at that point.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, obviously, with the protocol still, but when they have the road games, do you call from the house, obviously, or are you allowed to be on the booth?
No, when we're only there at home, every single major league ballpark has their own PA announcer. So I announce for both teams, when they're there. That being said, like if it's if it's the Mets and the Marlins, when the Mets are up at bat, then I give it like oomph and energy. And when the Marlins are up at bat, it's just like, here's the guy from the Marlins, like they're the away team. I'm not giving them any love. So I imagine, in fact, I know I've become friends with a lot of PA announcers around the league, and I know that they do the same thing. Some people are a little bit nicer with the away team, and some are me, and they're just a big jerk. But this is New York, baby. You got to, take what you can get.
Yeah. So, what do you like the new extra inning rule? Having the man on second base starting off the 10th.
Nope.
No.
Hate it. No.
Yeah.
I think it's garbage. I think it's pure garbage. I do not like it at all. Yeah, I don't like any of the statistics that are attached to it. I don't, it's just, no, I don't, plain and simple.
So before we get to the last few things, I got to ask you, what's it like being at Citi Field, though? That stadium is nice, and just being in New York and being able to call games for the Mets. What's that been like for you, just being in Citi Field?
An honor. I mean, every single day, without fail, that I'm announcing and I pull up to that ballpark, and even on days in like December or January where I drive past it for whatever reason, I'll look at it for a minute and I'm like, my voice fills up a major league ballpark.
Mhm.
You know, there are 31 people on this planet that do what I do, and that is such a minute percentage of human beings walking this planet. Um, so for me, it's always a pinch me moment. You know, I can't believe that I get to sit there and have this unbelievable view of pretty much the entire ballpark and hear my voice resonate and echo throughout it. It's one of the best ballparks in the country, and we also have some of the best food of any ballpark in the country. So going to the ballpark every single time, there's never been a time where I'm like, ugh, I got to go to work today. Like there's days where I'm tired, but as soon as I pull up there and I park and I just look up, I kind of gawk every time, and I'm like, I have the greatest job in the world. It's there's no words, you know. I get paid to speak for a living, and I have no words. It's just something I will never, ever, 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 ever take for granted.
So, I'm just curious. Back in 18, when you started, did you get to go on the field and interview players too, or no?
No, not in 18. I went down for a couple of things, and I did meet a couple of players. In 19, Madi and I did a couple of segments. We were celebrating the 50th anniversary of the 69 Mets World Series championship. And so we were doing kind of an homage to Monday Night Baseball. And we had this old school graphics set up, this whole package that we did. I wore my grandfather's old ABC Sports jacket, the big hideous yellow jacket, and did some player interviews like that. But I mean, typically when I'm in the booth, I'm kind of relegated to just doing the regular PA duties. Whereas Marisol will she'll do a lot of player interviews, especially with Latin players, new players that come in, because she's got a background in television where that's what she does. She does it 5 days a week for Pix 11. So she gets that responsibility, which I am more than okay with because she's phenomenal at it. And you know, for me, growing up as a Cosell and meeting the people I met as I grew up, meeting players is not as important to me. But if I talk to them, you know, that's always cool. You know, it's neat to talk to a professional athlete, but it's not of utmost importance to me.
Yeah, I saw her recent interview with Omar Minaya on her page, and that was awesome. And
Yeah.
I gotta ask you though, I can't go without asking you about Mike Breen, one of the best play-by-play callers in basketball. And what are your thoughts on him, on his career?
I think him, you know, getting inducted to the Hall of Fame is, I mean, goes without saying. Like the guy's a beast. He's one of the greatest broadcasters of all time. And I have actually the great fortune of working with his son,
Oh, wow.
Matt Breen, works with us in production. He's in the typically he's in the control room, you know, cutting pieces and taking care of some stuff with the graphics and what have you. And Maddie's awesome. I love Brainy. So we've become very good friends. So, you know, we were actually just talking about the ceremony. He went with his dad, and you know, just the experience of it. And I said, by the way, tell your dad I said congrats, because he truly is one of the greatest. And so, you know, I'm sure he told him. He's a good, honest kid.
Yeah, hopefully the Knicks win tonight. Big game. They need to. Hopefully. But the last two things before I let you go, our team is part of this foundation called the Hugh Jackson Foundation, and he's a former NFL coach. He's now offensive coordinator at Tennessee State with Eddie George, and we're trying to help him prevent human trafficking and making sure the kids stay safe and the community stays safe. So I'll send you this page so you can go check it out.
Please, thank you, appreciate it.
And
We actually we had an event in 19, I believe. We had strikeout slavery was the baseball movement behind human trafficking and human enslavement. And we had a free concert with Ms. Lauryn Hill. She prefers to go by. And it was a truly unbelievable night for a great cause. So, you know, I think it's great that you're doing that.
And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers right now?
I mean, I made a point of it last year when no one could go to the ballpark and it didn't look like there were going to be any sports at all in the year 2020. When I started doing call-ups, ballpark style, personalized call-ups for people, I would just have them send their name, the jersey number, what position they'd play, and what walk-up song they'd want, and then I would record for them an announcement like I would at the ballpark, like they're coming up to bat. And I made frontline workers and teachers at the forefront of the people I did that for. And it was the absolute least I could do to bring them some normalcy during really tumultuous time, really sad, just tragic time in our country's history. But I will. I said it then, and I've said it many times since, and I will continue to thank you to everyone, nurses, doctors, EMTs, everyone who was out there risking life and limb quite literally when hospitals were overflowing with people with this illness they didn't know how to treat or take care of, sacrificing themselves, some of them losing their lives themselves. And to the teachers out there, I come from a family of teachers. They really stepped up as well, to try to keep school as normal as possible in a remote learning situation. So to all of them, thank you. My hat's off to you. I could not have done it. I wouldn't have the stomach or the it's just not in me. It's not in my circuitry. So thank God there are people out there that can. Thank God there are people that do, and thank them for what they did.
Yeah, well said. And there it is. That wraps up episode 805 for the End Hour Sports Show with Mets PA announcer Colin Cosell. He's a grandson of legendary broadcaster Howard Cosell. Go follow him on all social media formats. He does a great job, and obviously he's a former comedian. He does it all. Thank you again for coming on the show. This is truly an honor, and keep up the great work with Mary Soul. And she is such an inspiration. And we would like to have you back as a returning guest on the show at some point so you can meet the full team. But keep up the great work and good luck the rest of the way. And hope the Mets. It would be nice to see Yankees, Mets, both of them in the playoffs. So, but keep up the great.
I mean, who knows? A Subway Series might be in the cards. You never know. With baseball, you just never know. But thanks so much, NR. Thanks for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
No problem.